Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Marcy's Magic podcast. So, today I have a wonderful guest, Sabrina, joining me today for a conversation all about sex, casual sex, divine unions, relationship, all of that. And I am so excited to have her here with me today. So, when I found Sabrina's page, I was like, I love this woman. Straight away, I found it. I was like, we relate. I read some of her blog posts. I was like, we need to talk. We need to connect. And I'm just very excited to have this conversation with her today. I have been thinking about this every day for the last week, and we're on Friday. So it's been a long week waiting. So I'm going to pass over to Sabrina to introduce herself and her work.
Thank you, Marcy. And yes, ditto. I kind of feel like we have this like twin energy vibe. I don't know how to explain it. Everything from like the way we look to the way we speak to the things we're into, like it kind of freaks me out actually. And this morning, even when I saw you on video, I was like, oh my gosh, we're so alike. So I am Sabrina Mabel. Mabel's actually my middle name. It's my great grandmother's name, and I reclaim it as my name for the matriarchy. I don't like to use any of my paternal last names. And I am the EQ queen, the emotional intelligence queen. I'm a coach. And I was actually traditionally a teacher, and I still identify as a teacher, but I'm really just moving now to teaching EQ, emotional intelligence, as an embodied practice. I specifically also have created my own framework, which is called Emotional Alchemy. And, this all ties into what we're going to talk about today, which is shameless sex, as you said, casual sex, energy, and all that jazz. And, just to give a little bit more of an idea of my background, I bring in a perspective that is very holistic, but not just like the woo woo spiritual. So I am trained as a Reiki master teacher. I've taught students. I've, studied holistic education, spiritual education. I've also studied, like, my master's is in developmental psych. I have the education background, and I really bring a perspective that's like the spirit, the soul, but also the psyche with the body and the emotions. So I think that's what makes me unique, because a lot of people are just all about the spirit or all about the body. And I'm like, no, 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 no. It's the whole thing. And I think that perspective is what has allowed me to view sex as something shameless and understand that you can have great sex with whoever the fuck you want. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but
Yeah.
um, and you can still protect your energy and still be a beautiful soul who's spiritual and who is clean, or whatever you want to call it, who's like energetically just fine. So that's
Mhm.
me.
I love that. And I love that you have the background in psychology because same, and teaching also same, and Reiki and all this energy stuff. So I feel like we're such a match and I love it.
Yes.
And I would really love to hear your thoughts around this idea of sex being sacred. And obviously, I know you've just said that, there's no shame, there's way to have like casual sex with it being clean or however you want to call it, which I don't agree with the use of such adjectives, but for the purpose of just describing that. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the idea because I feel like a lot of people in the spiritual community really hold on to this idea that, it's sacred, it's an enormous energy exchange where you hold someone's energy for like 7 years. But I know you have a much more relaxed and a different approach to it. So I'd just love to hear more about it.
Okay, so first of all, I would love to know the source of information that, you hold on to someone's energy for 7 years. Now,
Yeah.
maybe it's true, and we could say, okay, maybe that's true. Some guru, some spiritual person knows this and has it, like they received some message from an Akashic record, or I don't know, from Mary Magdalene. I'm pretty sure Mary Magdalene would disagree. But anyway, either way, first thing I want to say, like biologically speaking, and in our physical body, it could be because our body, it's interesting how the body, I think, changes every single cell every 7 years. So every 7 years, you're actually completely a new person. So, and sex is an exchange of fluids. Like you're literally exchanging fluids, and those fluids are going to impact you, right? Just like if I drink coffee every day or what I eat is going to impact my body. So 100% sex, like, first of all, has a physical effect on us. Oh, someone's ringing my doorbell.
Do you need to answer?
I think so.
Go
Can
for
we
it.
pause?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Oh, sorry, this was totally. All right. Little interruption there. Um, so what I was saying was that how physically speaking, sex is an exchange of fluids, and obviously there is a physical aspect to it. And yeah, there's that possibility that when you have sex with someone, you impact them. Like you could give someone a sexually transmitted disease, for example, that could impact someone for their whole life. I myself have herpes type 1, so, and it's like, it's something that you stay with your whole life. And so obviously there's consequences. Obviously, when you choose to have sex with someone, there's a reality. You could have a child, you could literally create life while having sex. So I think it's important not to diminish that, and not to diminish that your choices around sex can have lifelong impacts, whether it's 7 years, your whole life, whatever it may be. Now, when we talk about the energy piece, my opinion is that just like you interact with people in everyday life. So whether you're on the bus, whether you are walking down the street, whether you're at a meeting with colleagues, whether you're sitting with friends and sharing food, energy is always impacting us. Like I'm sitting here, in Mexico, you're all the way, I think you're in England.
Yeah,
And our energy like, I can feel your energy and you can probably feel mine.
yeah.
We're always impacting each other. And of course, in the act of sex, it's like a lot more direct. But I believe that when you really do know how to navigate your energy, which, like, I teach emotional alchemy, right? Which is actually about moving the energy of your emotions. But in this case, it's like moving the energy of an interaction with someone else's auric field. I think
Mm.
whether it's like you're having sex with, I think I said once, like 1,000 people or one person your whole life or in 1 year, it's about how can you master that energy.
Mm.
That's how I view it. As simple as that. And it's like, if you're someone, if you can handle having different energy around you and it doesn't bother you, so be it. And then there's people who are very, very sensitive and they cannot handle it. But I think one of the reasons people can't handle it is because of the shame. And
Mm.
it's interesting that the spiritual community, who claims to always be love and light and gratitude and forgiveness, are having these dialogues that somehow sex, unless it's like super sacred with one person and it's tantric and it's this and that, is somehow bad and shameful, and you're going to be like cursed for 7 years. I think it is such a dangerous dialogue, because people who are searching for answers, and I think a lot of people who go to the spiritual community are actually usually people with trauma who are undiagnosed or who've had a bad experience, and then they're being told this, and then it just adds shame, and it just, I don't know, that's how I view it. I think it's about being a master of your energy, and you get
Mm.
to choose what kind of energy you allow in your life. And when you have sex, there will be an energetic exchange just like anything else. And yeah, that's how I view it.
Yeah. No, but I feel like it's such an important mindset and approach to have. And I feel like mindset doesn't even cut the description of mm, well, the energy that you're holding in these interactions. And I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you've said, because even from my own life experience, let's say a few years ago, before I mastered my own energy and was so deeply in tune with myself and what I wanted and had such an open heart, I definitely had a lot of these interactions and exchanges that were so unaligned. But what I've noticed is that it was because I was going into them with the wrong intentions. It would either be just, oh yeah, just, I don't know, gonna have fun without necessarily seeing what's underneath that, or going into these casual interactions with a desire of, okay, I don't actually want to be having casual interactions. I want something deep and meaningful. And I still do, but I feel like because my energy is so much different now, it does make me a lot more aware of what kinds of energies I interact with. Whereas before, I definitely didn't consider the exchange of the energies. But I also got in my head about the fact, for months, I would say the next person I'm going to have sex with is going to be my husband.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. That man is definitely not my husband.
Yeah.
But because my energy around it changed, my expectations, as well as the way that I am now so much more God led into everything that I do find it's almost kind of like being hygienic,
Yeah.
where depending on sort of how sensitive you are to different things, how maybe if you're more introverted you can't handle as many social interactions and you need the tap and you need the time to recharge by yourself, or maybe you're very extroverted and you thrive on interactions with people. I've definitely been able to master that for myself, and that over the last weeks had many revelations about casual sex myself.
Yeah.
um so it's really fun to be able to have this conversation with you and hearing you say that.
Yes. Can I say a few things about what you said? Because I
Yeah.
like my mind immediately goes like, so part of what I do is like being able to identify people's facades, their shadows, the conflict within themselves. So when you were sharing it, what I could hear was like in that experience, there were two parts of you that were in conflict. It's
100%.
like maybe there was a part of you that did just want to have fun because in that moment that's what you needed, but there was another part of you that's like, yeah, but I only want to have sex with my future life partner. So it's actually within yourself that there's the inner conflict. So it actually has
Mm.
nothing to do with the other person's energy half the time. It has to do with your own energetic resistance within yourself. So there's this you like, I want to have fun, I want to be free and liberated, and I want pleasure. And then there's the part of you that's like, no, 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 Marcy, we want to have like our husband. So we're going to keep our energy for our husband. So then you go and do something. Let's say you did go ahead and have casual sex, and the guy's not your husband in the end, because that's very likely to happen, or we don't know yet. What you're actually feeling is the disappointment, or maybe the shame, or whatever negative feedback you're getting from yourself because you disappointed this version of you. This
Mm.
happy, fun, woo, is like super happy. Like, woo, that felt good. I needed that. And then this version of you is like, how disappointing. And that's actually, I think, the energetic leakage.
Mm.
And I think the piece here, and you talked about, being God led. And I always tell people, like, I don't consider myself religious and I don't follow one sacred text. But what I have seen when I've read several sacred texts is that the common theme and what I feel like is always God's message is to be accepting,
Yeah.
to be accepting of ourselves, to be accepting of others. And that means we also accept all parts of ourselves. We
Mm.
also accept the primal forces, the desire for pleasure. And so, really, what is okay, I accept that there's a part of me that desires a husband, and I accept that there's a part of me that wanted to have fun. And now, how can I bring unity to these two parts of me? Can we allow ourselves that, you know what? Sometimes we're going to have pleasure with a person we feel really good with and we trust with, and we feel energetically like it's hygienic. And maybe they'll become her husband, but it would actually be kind of a fantasy to think I had sex and now he's my husband, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And it's like, can we accept that maybe we got it wrong and they weren't it, and that's okay. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean we won't have a beautiful connection with a future partner. And I believe that future partner, if he's right for you, he'll accept you regardless of the fact that you had sex with Joe Blow and had a good time that night. You know what I
Yeah, 100%. And I do feel like acceptance is probably not, well, not even probably, it is the most important element of any kind of work that you do, because you see so many people online talking about being really self-aware, and it's like, yes, it's great that you're self-aware, but that people almost describe themselves as too self-aware, and that it's not doing them any good. And because the missing piece is the acceptance, because
Yes.
the awareness is just the first step, but what are you then going to do with that awareness? And I love everything that you've said just there. And there's definitely a conflict, but I know in my scenario, it wasn't that there was a shame towards wanting the fun. It was a misperception that I thought I wanted that kind of fun because that's what I was observing in my environment. Until then, after a few instances, and I was like, actually, this is not what I genuinely want to be doing. So for me, that's where the conflict was. So it was the need to reconnect back with myself to really understand what I want. And that sort of guided me for the last few years. But I have definitely reached a point now where I'm like, you know what? My reality is different. And I'm noticing that the duality of, yes, I want to find my husband, and I also want to go out, have fun, and experience pleasure. They can exist at the same time. And really
Yes.
returning back to the truth of exactly that you've said about, the man that is for you will completely accept your whole history. And that is something that's definitely anchored me within that. And I've noticed how much different I feel after those exchanges, because they are coming directly from me and not from this is what I should be doing or I shouldn't. It's like an
Yes.
actual, authentic desire that feels fun, creative, safe, and just
Exactly.
true right in this moment.
Yeah, and I like to call that sovereignty. Like to
Yes.
me, our sovereignty is when, so I view sovereignty as like the soul, but it's also what's sovereign is our human body.
Yeah.
What's sovereign is our energy. What's sovereign is our emotional needs, our physical needs, our desires. Like, I think people in the spiritual community start to think that the soul, or like what's spiritual or authentic or sovereign, is only certain appropriate behavior. Like
Yes.
there's a lot of morality around what is good and bad, when in fact it's like, no, I'm a whole and complete soul in a body, and my body is also sacred, and my desire is sacred, and my emotional needs are sacred, my mind is sacred, it's all sacred. And I think you
Mm.
said it right there. It's like in the end you were able to recognize that's the conditioning from out there, that maybe I should be having fun. But then you connected with yourself, you're like, okay, no, what I want right now is my husband, and that doesn't feel right to me. And I think that's what it comes down to. Like, God is directly within us,
Yeah.
and we are the direct channel to God, and we are the direct channel to our sovereignty and what feels right for us. And I think that was like when we originally connected, that was exactly my point, is like your sex life and your energetic exchanges are about what feels sovereign to you, and that's it. And like that's what you, like when you said that, I was like, yeah. And what I also heard was you allowed yourself to make mistakes. Like you learned from acting from conditioning, which didn't feel right for you, versus now acting from sovereignty and what aligns with you, and that feels good. And that's all. That's it. That's it.
That's all that there is. That's it. End of
Yeah.
episode. That. Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And I'd love to know about energetics of other people in terms of how do you personally choose the energetics of either, let's say, a casual sex partner or someone more long term. Let's dive into that.
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about is I have definitely over time experienced that after sex, like I can feel a person's energy in my womb.
Yeah.
Like, and I tend to notice that if someone, let's say, is depressed or has a lot of like unresolved emotional issues or trauma, and not that it's bad, but if there's a lot of dense energetic mass that they're holding on to, as women, I do believe we are portals of healing. Like I think our vagina are is literally like a vessel of healing. Like, I think we are sacred prostitutes as women. Like, I think we heal with our pussies, okay?
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, yeah, so I have felt that in my womb space. Like, either it literally feels inflamed, it feels heavy, I can feel it in my back. And so, of course, over time, I start to ask myself, well, I don't want to have these casual interactions with people that I barely know, who I haven't even had time yet to feel into their energy, because afterwards I have to heal their freaking energetic junk.
Yeah.
And I have to now deal with that. And
Mm.
the way I like to view it is when I have my period, I'm like flushing out all of that stuff, right? And I
100%.
know you could do like a yoni steam and you could do all sorts of stuff. I've stopped feeling bad or shaming it or anything like that. It's just like I view it as like a recognition, like, okay, I had sex with that person. I didn't really take time to tune into their energy. Now I'm stuck with their garbage. So usually, like, I will do like an energetic cleanse. I love to use sage. That's what I resonate with. People resonate with different things. Or I'll do self Reiki. Sometimes I'm trained in Tao, and I like to give myself Tao blessings, which is a little bit different than Reiki. But at the end of the day, it's like I purge it, I cleanse it, and I move on. And then I learn from it as a human being, which I'm not going to lie, I've had a lot of casual sex because I was drunk or high. And
Yeah.
usually those were times in my life that I was escaping my own feelings and I was holding on to big emotions like shame, like sadness, like grief. So, of course, who was I energetically attracting? People with
Mm.
pain, with grief, with sadness who were escaping. They were just mirrors of me. So it's like,
Mm.
of course, that's who I was having sex with. But the difference is a man is the giving, force.
Yeah.
If we're just talking about here like heterosexual sex, like
Yeah.
the man is the one who's literally offloading
That's
and the
true.
woman is receiving. So unfortunately, we take on that shit.
Yeah.
And I just had to be like, okay, I don't want that anymore. So for
Mm.
example, something for me that's really changed is I only almost only ever have sober sex now. I
Mm.
don't have sex when I'm drinking or high, or anyway, I don't get high anymore. But like the point is, I try to be very careful because usually when I drink or when I've done drugs in the past, that's when I tend to not have the same ability to really read energy because I'm
100%.
so open that it's like there's discernment is not there.
For sure. And then I do feel like it really clouds your judgment. Like, have you ever had those experiences where you've gone on dates and you're like, oh my god, it was so good, like, wow, they're hilarious. And then the day after, when you're
Yeah.
sober, you're like, wait, no, I was the hilarious one.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I'm freaking funny. I had the stories. I'm a great
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
vibe.
Yeah, I'm
100%.
the storyteller. And we know
Yeah.
we're both the storytellers.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of how I've learned. So that's one thing for me that's important. And, recently I know people don't always like this, but I had to learn this for myself. I do the 3 date rule. So I
Okay.
try not to have any physical contact with someone until the third date or longer. And the reason for this, and look, I've had a lot of casual sex in my life. I've had great sex. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm at a point, like what you said, is like, I don't want to just have casual sex anymore for the sake of casual sex because I'm 34. I'm at the point where I do want to really meet my person. And the mistake I've made before is to have sex on the first or second date. And what happens is the hormones, right, the cortisol, the dopamine hit completely clouds my judgment. And I'm not even talking about the energy now. I'm talking about I accept red flags or I accept things that are non-negotiables that I don't want to accept, but because of the
Mm.
sexual chemistry, I don't see it. So I'll
Mm.
be 3, 4 weeks in, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, wait a second. Like, this person doesn't align with what I want. They're not what I want in a life partner. But I got wrapped up in the kind of rosiness of the sexual chemicals
Yes.
because I had sex right away. And this last year, I've been practicing that 3 date rule or more. And what's happened is within 1 or 2 dates, I can pretty much tell, don't like that energy, not for me, goodbye. And what that has helped me with is then it's like I'm not also dealing with all the energetic aftermath. I only have to deal with like, okay, like I could just cut them off essentially. Like there's no energetic tie there, or there's no energetic clearing to do because it was just at a distance. And I'm talking about everything. I don't kiss, no
Mm.
foreplay, no nothing. Just I wait.
I like that, but I want to know because I know we both spoke how if it's someone that we're serious about, we're more likely to wait. But if we know it's just going to be fun, then
Yeah.
there's like less of that. So, do you apply the same rule to people that you know it's just going to be fun with?
No.
No.
No. And like the reason we talked recently was because I had a little casual sex spree.
Yeah.
And what
And then I
happened is
wanted to tell you about my sex life. I was
yeah,
like, I
like
really need to hear this.
essentially there was someone in my neighborhood that like we kept flirting for like 3 months and like talking, but we never really met. And then that night when I finally met him, we were having wine. And even though I said to him, we're not going to have sex tonight, it was almost like I had no barriers. And then we ended up having sex. And again, what ended up happening is even though we'd had a past interaction, I actually realized right after that I felt super drained after that interaction. And I got that for me, his energy really didn't, it felt literally, it felt like he robbed my energy.
Yeah.
And I actually texted him, I'm so exhausted. I don't know what's going on. And he said, ha ha ha, maybe I robbed your energy. Like he actually said that. And then I'm going to say something else. The other thing is he had like a satanic tattoo. And so I kind of felt like he was a little test from the universe because he was kind of like my typical type that I would go for, which is like cute, tattoos, like good body, like,
Yeah.
easy conversation, all flirty. And he was also love bombing like 100%.
Um.
And it was like, while we were talking, I knew this is not it. Like, this is not what I want, but I was tempted by the lust. And I
Mm.
almost feel like it was a little demon, like sex demon in front of me, and I fell for it. But but then I was able to just immediately see this is not for me.
Yeah.
And I just that was it. Like nothing bad happened. I was like, ooh, I don't like this energy, not going back there.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
think I told you I also then had sex with a friend who
Yeah.
I had known for a long time, who we had this safety and this trust. And I know he's someone, let's say, he doesn't really drink a lot. He has a very healthy lifestyle, like a really great person. And we did end up drinking together and having sex. But the difference was I didn't feel that way afterwards. I actually felt
Mm.
rejuvenated. I felt creative. I felt alive. And I think the difference at the end of the day was I already knew this person. There was already emotional safety. There was
Yeah.
already like safety in general. And he's a person in general who has energetic hygiene.
Right.
Whereas I
That
could tell the other person did not.
for
Because like
sure.
he kept mentioning like that he enjoyed drinking, let's go drinking. So, with drinking, it affects your energy. Oh, and he's a stripper. So,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
well, anyway, I don't want to say too much, but like I don't think there's anything wrong with stripping, but I could tell there was something about him that he didn't understand, that interacting in those environments and with all those people had an energetic impact on him. And I could tell that he was not someone who was conscious of his energy. And I
Yeah.
could definitely tell that he wasn't in tune with his own stuff. So it was kind of like that person drained me and literally I feel like robbed part of my energy. And this other person who clearly is more aware did not make me feel that way. And I think, again, it's like some sexual interactions I really think can empower us, make us feel energetically like replenished and creative. And then the ones where it's almost like they're just using you as an energetic dump unconsciously, or like literally
Yes.
just you're grabbing your energy is like, no, thank you. And
Mm.
all the signs were there. All the signs were there. And I just ignored them because I was horny.
You know what's hilarious? It is in this has been told to me. First time I ever had an Akashic reading, done 2 years ago. That is one of my life's lessons to not go for people for the looks. And at first, when the girl said it, I was like, I don't do that. But then I reflected on it. I was like, actually, that has swayed me straight in the past. And I realized this when I was dating this man. And in my head, I was like, wow, this is the best because we both have the same moon sign. We're like, wow, this is it. And then he asked me, why do you like me? And I was like, luckily it was over text
Yeah, yeah.
because my reaction was like, I don't know. I couldn't name one reason why I actually liked him. And
Yeah.
then I realized it was because when we were hanging out, he was very interested in me. So I was just like, he would be talking and be like looking at him like, wow, he's so pretty and he's so interested in me. And
Are you
that
a
was it for
Libra?
me.
I don't remember. What's your sun sign?
I'm a Cancer, but with
You're
a Libra
Cancer.
rising.
Okay, okay, this makes a lot of sense. I'm
Yeah.
Libra sun, but also like Libra Mercury and Venus. And I think parts of the traits of Libras is, I'm not going to lie, we love being in love or in lust, and we love people loving us.
Yeah.
Like we have a little bit of, and we're super into aesthetics. Like aesthetics are super important to us.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why we jive so much, because we have similar aesthetics. But I so relate to you. Oh my goodness.
That's hilarious. So I guess the common denominator of what you were talking about before is like it's important to go for people who have that energetic hygiene, because then if someone is completely out of touch with themselves, naturally they will transfer that energy to you.
Exactly, exactly. And I just want to say something about what you just said about, desiring someone for how they look. And like, again, like destigmatizing that as well. Cause some people think, oh, how shallow or
Yeah,
how
yeah,
vain. It's
yeah.
like, no, like we're freaking human beings. Like we're allowed to like things that look good. And what my therapist said to me last year was like, she said it in Spanish, but she, like, the translation is something like, you have to stop going for the caramel candy.
Okay. Did
And
she
she's
say
like, notice your
cariños?
patterns, Sabrina. She's like, you go for these guys because they're cute, and I was dating a lot of young men last year and like the year before, which I never did before. And in, in Mexico, there's the joke of like colágeno, so like dating younger guys for their collagen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I look so young and radiant for the last 2 years. No,
Robbed.
but the point is, she pointed that to me as well. She's like, you kind of go for guys for their looks, good bodies, they're athletic, they have like nice smiles, da 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 da. Like my own looks, because some of my friends always say you date gorillas, like you like gorillas, or like you, I don't know, whatever. But okay, there was a point to this. Let me get back on track. Oh yes, okay. And recently, that's what I've realized. Like bodies and looks really don't matter. And I wrote this thing actually yesterday on my personal Instagram, not my EQ Queen Instagram. Do your listeners speak Spanish or no? Do
No,
you
I
speak
do,
Spanish, right?
but
Yeah,
my
I know. Okay.
listeners don't.
I I'll do the translation of what I wrote last night. So I said, I can confirm that the body and appearances of a person are excellent for lust and the validation of the ego. And I can also say that great vibes are amazing. And what I've really like, and then I wrote, but actions aligned with words, emotional intelligence, and vulnerable communication are what's really attractive. And then I put a little
Mm.
spice emoji.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I
I
love
like put a little bikini, you know. But
that.
the point was to say, like, I've come to this point in my journey where every time I'm tempted only by looks or physical chemistry is where I go wrong. And
Yeah,
I've now gone on 2 dates with this guy, and I had told my friend, like, we haven't kissed yet. He's like, what do you mean you haven't kissed yet? Like, to me, if I haven't kissed by the first date, like, there's no chemistry and something's wrong. And I was like, no. I said, what I have learned is when actually things get physical so quickly, and it's like this kind of chemical explosion of physicalness, that's usually when it's lust.
absolutely.
And I'm not building a true, emotional, energetic, intellectual connection with the person. And I'm really trying now to set aside the sexual energetic chemistry and wait for that, and trust that if it's aligned and then we have sex maybe in a month or whatever, 3 dates or 4 dates, it's fine. Because usually for me, that's my downfall. I'm a very, very horny person. very physical, very aesthetic.
Yeah,
So I
I
have to
see
like,
that.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I know
Yeah.
that wasn't your question originally.
No, 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 I like it. And I know, like, for me personally, is like, I've had to definitely learn to get to that point where I did used to be swayed by the looks, but now I see it as like, actually, this is just very superficial, and there's time and a space for that. But I've noticed a lot of the time the superficial doesn't cut it. I want more.
Yeah.
I want like the safety of the interactions. And the way that I like to see it is like, well, whatever this energy is, it's creative energy, because sexual energy is creative energy.
Yes.
So is it going to go somewhere with someone I find attractive, or can I just let it build up a little bit more and maybe channel it onto a creative project or something else, or back to myself if I can't get the depth that I desire from that specific interaction?
Exactly. And I think you just said it right there. And I think it's especially important for people who are spiritual to hear that, and especially for people who are learning energetic work. Just this week in my EQ Academy, the first module is about reclaiming our sovereignty and our sacred birthrights. And in the
Mm.
Hindu chakra system, the second birthright, like in our sovereignty, when we are born, it is our sacred right to be sensual, to be sexual, and to feel. Like God literally gave us, sexual organs that are pleasurable for a reason. If He didn't want us to feel pleasure, He wouldn't have given us a clit.
Yeah,
Like,
that's so true.
why else would we have pleasure with ejaculation and pleasure with orgasms? Like, why?
That's so true. I love it. And something that I want to go to actually is because you go to salsa classes or bachata
Yes.
classes
Yes.
or both.
I do both.
Me too. And you do it with partners?
Not right now, but I used to. I actually now do it with ladies, like as in salsa ladies, like it's individual. And
Yeah,
I'll
I
tell you a
saw
little bit
your
about that
video the
before,
other day.
later. Yeah.
Yeah, so um I I'm in love with salsa and bachata, to be honest. And one thing about it for me is like I love to observe my reactions to certain men. How,
Yes.
there's a difference between being a good leader and a good dancer. And what I've noticed is like there's men who are good dancers, but the energy is so unaligned, or they are such an awful leader that
Yes.
when I'm dancing with them, I'm thinking, when is this song gonna finish? But then it also goes the other way around, where I've danced with men who are not great dancers, but the energy is incredible and they're confident and they want to experiment and they're just overall very good leaders, that I'm like, I'm having the best time. So
Yes.
I love to see these reactions, and it's definitely since going to the salsa and bachata classes that I have gotten so much more intentional about these energy exchanges and gotten more clear around what kind of an energy I desire from a
From a
partner,
man.
a husband,
Yeah.
etc.
And I love, and again, it's like when you think about it, like la cadena, the hips, it's all the second chakra. It's that second birthright. And you're right. It's like when we're moving our hips, whether I know bachata moves the hips more, but even in salsa, even on our individual level, it's like we're connecting with that chakra. And exactly what you said is what I think all the time about the leadership. So for me, actually, when I started salsa, when I arrived in Mexico 3 years ago, I'm Canadian, like for people who don't know, I am the perfect example of a conditioned, hyper independent, hyper masculine woman.
Okay.
And literally, since probably the age of about 8 years old, I stopped being
Mm.
in my feminine.
Oh my! I
And
see where this is going.
yeah. And yeah. So for me to be led by a man was very difficult, because I'm very much don't fucking tell me what to do. Like I'm not like I'm all about like I lead myself, I make shit happen. I'm never going to depend on a man. But that's the
Yeah.
hyper masculine, hyper independence, like the wounded feminine who doesn't know how to be safe and surrender. But I
Mm,
didn't know that. And even when I started, I was so awkward in salsa. Oh my gosh. And I
yeah.
remember watching other women and being like, how do they move their body like that? Like it felt so inaccessible to me. And I want to share this because if people are listening and be like, oh, that's great, Marcy and Sabrina, like you dance salsa and bachata. Wow. Good for you.
Show offs.
But like I started with nothing, nothing. I was a sports girl. I played soccer, I played field hockey, I played everything.
Mm,
And I let go of dance when I was young. And yeah, something about it completely reconnected me to my feminine, but it took being willing to be safe. And the people that I liked dancing with the most were the people who made me feel safe. And I remember they would tell me, don't worry. Like there's this one guy in my dance classes who used to say, don't worry, Sabrina, just have fun. Don't
love
worry
that.
about it. Just have fun. Disfrútalo.
Yeah.
And whenever he would say that, I was like, oh, yeah. So I actually would choose partners who, like you said, weren't necessarily the best, the most technical, but who made me feel like I was having fun and I was able to let go and it didn't matter. And actually, at first, I wouldn't even go to the classes. I refused to go to the classes and I would only go to the socials because I felt
That's
like at the
interesting.
socials, yeah, there was no expectation. And
Ah.
naturally, I can move my body like reggaeton,
Yeah.
girl, like, soca, I can go deep and down and I have no problem. And actually, even in Canada, like the people I connected with the most are usually people who are like Jamaican, Trinidadian, Punjabi, Indian men because they dance. And I can be aligned with that, but it was always like that dancing feels a little bit like I get to choose and I'm in my power. But
Yeah.
something about salsa and bachata is like, oh, now I have to let a man lead me? Fuck no.
Oh my
So
God.
it's even, yeah, it's like surrendering to the feminine and being safe. And eventually, now I'm a very skilled dancer. I can say, like, okay, like at like a social level, can't compete or anything, but it definitely took surrendering. And when we bring it back to sex, it's like sex as a woman is also a surrendering, and we can still be in our power and surrender. And I think salsa and bachata is a beautiful representation of that. Can I surrender and soften, and still use the technique to ground me and to feel safe and to understand how I'm being led, but
Mm.
then let the man lead the way. And 100%, I've experienced guys who are great technically, but they're all egoistic. It's all about them looking good. Don't enjoy dancing with them. And then I've danced with guys who are not so technical, but we really, really click. And same thing, you want to dance the next song. And it's like the
Yeah.
people you go to. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And I love that. And I feel like the idea of the surrender for someone who may be, in the hyper independent state, it might feel like it's a vulnerability. Why would I want to give away control? But the way I see it is like you don't have control anyway. Like the only thing that you have is a choice. And I think that
Yes.
surrender is a process of returning back home to yourself, returning back to your safety, which then emits that back into the interactions that you're having, not just in sex and relationships, but in general everyday interactions. And I think it's one of the most powerful things that we can do as women.
Yes.
And oh my God, like the way that I think about this surrender, like for me, I also started with like not, well, I was already quite surrendered. Um, but it was, I didn't know any salsa and bachata at all. I've been doing it for about 3 months now. And I would say I'm quite a good dancer. And
Ooh.
I know, and I go to the classes, but the classes are for beginners and they're a bit too easy for me now, to be honest.
Okay.
So I dance my night away at the socials. Um, and it is really interesting. For example, there's this one man that I want to bring up because his energy was just incredible, right? That I've been like sort of like exchanging glances for a few weeks, but nothing ever happened. And then the other week I came up to him and I was like, "Let's dance," and he was like, "Okay." But he was like, kind of sort of like pre warned me that it was a bachata song that I wanted to dance with him. He sort of pre warned me that he's better at salsa. He's like, "Okay, I'll do this one with you if you do salsa with me." And I'm like, "Well,
Oh,
obviously."
I love that.
And then
And this
he,
is such a typical, by the way, like dancer talk. Oh, I'm not good at
oh yeah,
bachata.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then you start dancing and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, of course you're good at bachata.
No, exactly. And you could tell that he was like, he was a good dancer. I was better, but he was
Yeah.
still a good dancer. But because of his approach, you like it was such an incredible time, and the way he moved his hips, I was like, sir, you behave yourself.
Sir,
And then
I
at
love it.
one point he's like,
Oh, mister.
yeah, he's like, being like, wow, you're so good. And there we go, that's why I wanted to talk about him. Was he was experimenting so much, like he didn't know the technicalities of it, so he was just experimenting from what he observed others do. And he was like, how do you know what I'm about to do next? Like, how do you just follow and do it? And I'm like, well, I'm a good follower,
Mm,
I'm a good dancer, but also I love your energy. So I'm
mm,
tuned into your energy.
yeah.
So even though you are completely freestyling these dances, I just flow with wherever you're leading me. And I
Yeah.
think that is on being secure and fun and the divine union.
Yeah, and I think it says something about the body. And if we bring it back to energy in the body, it's like our body has so much wisdom.
Yeah.
And what I have found, so kind of to go back to classes, like I ended up going to salsa classes and I did salsa classes for a year and I ended up being like in level 2. And then I moved city. And when I moved city, this new city that I was in, the Spanish is a little bit different. And I decided to refocus on sports. Like I felt like I want to go back to sports. So I did soccer and volleyball. And I was like, so I get frustrated with salsa sometimes because it becomes so technical. And I
Yeah.
kind of felt like I needed a break and I didn't feel comfortable with the Spanish accent. Like there was just things that I felt blocked. So I took a break for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to socials. And same thing with bachata. I've only taken about probably 5 classes of bachata, but I got the basic steps and basic kind of like moves. And then in that whole year that I was just going to socials, I learned so much bachata just by
Mm-hmm.
following a man who was a good leader. And same thing with salsa. I realized I can go to a salsa dance club and I can dance with the most advanced dancers, not because I have the best technique, but because I learned to follow and I learned like what feels good. And exactly what you're saying,
Exactly.
there are men who don't follow the typical like techniques, but yet it feels so good. And what I find is when I get in my mind, which is why I don't always like classes, when I get in my mind, I can't dance. It's like there's a
Yeah.
dislocation. And the
Yeah.
moment I go to a social, I'm like a freaking goddess of like, I don't know what. And I can suddenly dance everything and I don't have any problem. And I stopped taking classes for a year. I went back. I restarted this fall to go to Salsa 2 in a different dance school. And I stopped again
Mm.
because I found it was so technical and it was all about doing these really technical moves that it took away the beauty of just flowing in the energy and listening to my body. And then what I found is those guys, when I go to salsa, all they want to do are the moves they learn. But then we're not actually connected to each other. We're not actually connecting our bodies, or we're in our head. And he becomes very heady and dislocated.
Yeah.
And which is why I made the decision not to be in pareja and partner
Uh,
salsa right now. And I
yeah.
only go to salsa ladies and I go to bachata ladies because it allows me to connect with my own energy, my own body, be confident with myself, understand myself and my comfort zone. And then when I go to the socials, it's so much easier to just connect with someone. And people are like, wow, you're getting so much better. And like, I'm only going to the ladies' classes because it's like like what we talked about. I'm tuning into my energy, my
Yes.
sovereignty, my power. And then as
Exactly.
a woman, if I'm connected to that, it's so much easier to surrender and to be safe. And it all goes back to the sex piece as well.
Yeah. And I feel like at the cornerstone of it all is safety. And can you
Hmm.
just bear with me because I've had a coffee and I really need to pee?
Yeah, I'm gonna get more coffee too.
Okay, right, let's stop. Another mini break. Let's go. So, what I want to ask actually is you have referenced it a little before, but you said about having a type. And
Mm,
I would just love to hear more about it because I don't understand the concept of having a type. There's like qualities and characteristics that I look for, but maybe is there Venusian energy within you that of liking the aesthetics? But I'd just love to hear more about it because I don't personally get it.
Okay, if I were to show you pictures of my exes, they don't look alike.
Okay.
Like my first ex was like Greek. My second was like, British, Caucasian ethnicity. Then I dated a Turkish guy. Then I was with a man who's Punjabi Sikh. And then, well, now I've been dating Mexican men.
Yeah.
But, and I have literally been with men. Oh gosh. Like those scratch, I'm going to just declare like I'm a little skanky. But anyway, those scratch maps of like places you visited in the world?
Yeah.
I could scratch one of all the different ethnicities I have slept with.
Love.
I'm just gonna say my preference is Brazilian.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anyway, but in terms of type, like physically speaking, there are things that I like that like I can, and I'm sorry to say this, like for me personally, I can't date a man who has no lips, who has no ass, or has no legs. It's just
Okay.
me. Like I want a meaty man.
Fair.
It's as
Okay.
simple as that. And a smile is like that's what makes me melt. So in a way, I have a type in terms of certain physical characteristics. Like they usually have to have like, yeah, there's a kind of nose that I like, or a kind of smile, broad shoulders, like good legs, good lips, stuff like that. But yeah, I've never dated like, oh, like they look exactly like this. It's that my type is bad boys.
Oh, yeah. I get it.
And I mean, literally yesterday I had a conversation with my therapist where we got to the root cause of all of my, relationship disappointments. And okay, long story short, I think very, very young, I start to fantasize about like what I wanted in life. But because of my own male role model in my own life, like my own paternal father figure, unconsciously is like someone who's avoidant and love bombs, who's jealous and possessive, who's not very, now he is, but wasn't emotionally responsible nor available.
Yeah.
And then in combination with my own personality and being someone who my coping mechanism was to escape in substance use and alcohol and sex. So there was a part of me who all I knew that was safe and normal are pretty much unsafe men who are emotionally unavailable and who love bomb. And
Mm.
on top of it, having this kind of esteem of like, well, I'm someone who's fucked up and broken
Yeah.
because, I had addiction, substance abuse, blah, blah, blah. I come from a broken home, blah, blah, blah. It's like I never felt like I was worthy of a good man. And I
Mm.
never felt like a man would actually accept me for who I am. And so unconsciously, I constantly just attracted my trauma bond,
Ah.
or men with addictions, men with problems, whatever it may be. Like literally the last guy I was with for 6 months is from a neighborhood called La Patria Nueva, which is considered to be the worst neighborhood in Chiapas in the state. And people know it as like the cartel, not the cartel, the police doesn't even go there. Like police will not intervene if something happens there, and the cartel is very present there. Like I dated someone from that area,
Yeah. Oh my
ended up
god.
having to get a legal restriction. Okay. And but my point is like, how did I meet him? This was 2 years ago, where I had a relapse, and that night I had gone drinking with my friends and I had used, and I met him, and he was my type, like cute, muscular, tattoos, cute smile, kind of like aesthetically look like very, but was all that, the trauma, the love bombing. It was like all the things I wanted through the love bombing with all of the vices. But somehow it was like, boom, we connected so deeply. And the sex was mind blowing, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Um, and that's my type, and that has been my type. And this person just happened to be like the connecting point of my whole type put into one person.
Mm.
And what I learned this last 2 years, because I went back to therapy, I went back and started doing all of the deep work again, was that I was so used to chaos my entire life that that's all I ever knew. So of course I would attract a man who creates chaotic energy.
Mm,
And that's what I've been healing. And now I'm choosing to date men who feel safe.
I love
And
it.
at first, that was boring as hell. It
Yeah.
felt boring to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I broke through. There's still a little bit of the avoidance stuff there, but I'm
Yeah.
breaking through. I'm breaking through.
Yeah. But then I feel like there are certain things that you can't learn unless you're in the practice of it. Like,
Exactly.
I've definitely had a lot of relationship wounds to heal, which I would be so happy to discuss, but that would be here for another hour.
We need another podcast essentially.
Yes. That I know for a fact that I have healed a lot of it, but I know there's going to be triggers until I actually am in a position where I'm getting into a relationship with someone.
Yes.
You know what's really funny? When you said your type, your preference is Brazilian. So when I first moved to Spain, I started dating this Brazilian boy, and I was so convinced he was going to be my husband. Like, we had, oh my god, the chemistry of it, oh my god,
It's their
was,
energy. It's their energy, man.
yeah, very intense, and I love
Woo!
it. And he was also very prone to love bombing. And after like the first day, I was like, "Oh my god, like this is great!" And I got my tarot cards, and I've always said the King of Cups is gonna be my husband energy because it's like the perfect balance of like
I literally have this dice. You're gonna laugh at me, okay?
okay,
When I moved into this house, I found this dice that had a king on it
yes,
and like the queen, and I was like, yeah, like my man has king energy, and there's a joker on it, and I always tell myself whenever I'm dating the joker is when like I'm not aligned.
oh my god. I love it. But and the thing is that I feel like it works. But the thing with this, like, so I've always said that King of Cups is my husband. So then when I go for my tarot cards after this date and it shows me it's a King of Cups, I'm like, this is it, he's my husband. And what I then realized was that he really wanted to have sex with me. But I was like, but I intuitively I knew it, but I was like, no, because if you're going to be my husband, we need to wait. So then there was a lot of these red flags that he was showing, but I was like, but he's my husband, so it doesn't matter because I'm just going to persevere. And to be honest, I'm glad it worked out that way because the time that we were dating, and it was the first person that I've dated for so long in a while then, that I was like, I've healed so much from my heart space because there was so many walls, so much like past life energy that was keeping me in really toxic patterns and
Yeah.
just really unhelpful behaviors, that actually having it in mind that he's my husband made me work through my shit. And then I
Mm-hmm.
worked through a lot of it and I saw through it. And I've noticed, I think he got the point that, I wasn't. He would always walk me home in the hope that I would take him upstairs, and I never did. And I think that's what made him pull away. But
Yeah.
I still received so much from that relationship, so much healing that came of it.
Yeah, and I want to say something because again, in the spiritual community a lot of the time we talk a lot about self-sabotage and shadows. Can you hear my dog scratching? I think so.
Yeah.
I'm going to open the door, sorry. Come on, Ren. Sorry about that. It's like having babies, right? Like, mommy, I want your attention. But just to kind of, I want to say, I think it's really important to understand that these parts of us that go for our red flag, that go for like our toxic pattern, like you just said it, it's like you went for it, but then you learned from it. And that's all that matters. Like, there's no shame. It's not bad. It's not something to avoid or suppress. It's something to embrace.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, I went for like that guy that I told you about who had the demonic tattoo. He was Colombian. Of course. My ex was half Honduran. I love, like, my sexual part of me loves that energy. There's something about men from that part of the world that have a
Yeah.
different energy in their sacral. I don't know what it is, but it,
We could
woof.
do a whole episode about the Latino men, to be honest.
And
You
it's
know what
and
was
they're
really.
also great dancers, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the point is, like, I think people need to know that going into your toxic pattern or going for the red flag again is an opportunity for learning. And I think the more we resist it, it ends up smacking us in the face anyway. And sometimes it's like surrendering to it, surrender to the shadow, surrender to the self sabotage, because it's there for a reason. And I think there's always something to learn. And in this case, you were like, okay, you kind of knew, but you went for it anyway. But you were like, but I'm not going to have sex, but I'm not. And you actually were able to overcome almost like your typical pattern by surrendering to it and just acting
Yeah.
differently, if that makes sense.
So yeah, no, totally. And to be honest, I would say that if it weren't for the tarot card that gave me the King of Cups, I don't think I would have persevered, because I would, and that's literally what I was telling myself. I was like, you know what, if this was he was acting like that and it was just any other man, I would tap out. But because tarot gave me the card that I've always said was my husband, I was like, well, I got it, because we've got to work through this. But it's really funny. On the first date, we were just like, chilling, chatting, asking each other like a load of random questions. And he was like, what kind of an animal would you be? And bear in mind, I didn't know. I knew Spanish, but not so well. I've only just moved to Spain. So very innocently, I told, you know what I told him? I told him that I would, sería una perrita.
What did
And
you want
he,
to say?
huh?
Did you actually mean to say like dog?
Yeah, I thought, well, okay, well, I'm a girl, so obviously, perro, but female, and I'm like a little dog.
Perra, little
And he was like,
dog,
you know what that
perrita,
means? And I was like, yeah, like a little female dog,
a
no?
puta.
And I went back and told my flatmate, and she was mortified. So maybe that's where he got the wrong
You
idea.
pretty much were like, I want to be a little bitch.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to be
I
your little
realized that.
slut.
I was
Oh,
just, well, I'm like a little puppy. I'm excited and I'm a female.
oh my
It
gosh.
was so
I was going to
funny.
say one more thing though. You were mentioning, oh, the tarot cards. This is something else I want to say because I want to bring it back to like what we said at the beginning. And I know we have to wrap up, and I'm so sad I have to go. But the sovereignty piece.
Yeah,
I think in the spiritual world, we have a tendency to go to outside forces, and I'm guilty of it too,
exactly.
to get
Yeah.
validation and confirmation and answers because the guru or the healer or the oracle or the psychic somehow knows more than us.
Oh
And
my
I
god,
think it's a
yes.
bunch of fucking baloney. I read oracle cards. I have, channeling abilities. I'm a healer as well, like by nature, right? And I think there's so much value to this work. And it's like exactly what you said. It's like a part of you was so stuck on like he must be my king because the tarot was there. But like that's the interpretation and what we made it mean because we were looking for validation of what we desired.
Oh
And
my god, that's so true.
sometimes our little like how would I say where we lose ourselves is we depend too much on the outside world to confirm to us what is true or not true, and especially as people who are spiritual and who work in energy. And I think it
Yeah,
all comes back to listen to yourself, connect with your womb space, connect with your heart, connect with your own wise woman, and she will know should I fuck this guy or not? Do I really want pleasure or do I want relationship? Do I want emotional intimacy or right now do I just want to have sex and that's it? And that's what it all
mm,
comes down to, like connect within to your own sovereignty, and your body will tell you everything. Your emotions will tell you everything. Like the energy lives in the body. And like that to me, and that's why I talk about embodied emotional intelligence, because it lives in the body. And
yeah.
check in with the body, and your body's sacred and your body will know. And then that's when I think you know whether it's sovereign or not.
Oh my god, that is so beautifully put, and I feel like that's such a beautiful summary of everything that we've spoken about. And I really feel like we could also do another podcast episode about it, because I have also really shifted my modalities and the way that I teach my clients, and also my own approach to spirit work. Because, for example, I've stopped doing tarot readings
Yeah.
for various reasons, but all returning back to the wisdom of the body, which I feel like is, I'm glad that it's getting its daylight.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm aware that we have to wrap up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Sabrina's Instagram and contact details in the bio. Check out her page, check out her offerings, and just want to thank you for this incredible conversation. I wish we could stay for the next
I
3 hours
know.
and chat.
We could literally, I feel like this is like Sabrina and Marcy's tea time, you know?
Yeah, for real.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you. And I think even our connection speaks volume about being in tune with our energy because we
Yeah.
just so naturally connected. Like, I really appreciate you reaching out about my blog. Like, you actually encouraged me to keep writing the blog and keep being authentic. And the blog for me was like a piece where I just wanted to share myself without feeling like I need to sell anything. Like, that to me is my self-expression piece. And even me reaching out to you about wanting to launch my podcast and then you inviting me to your podcast. And I just feel like we're so connected. And I think you said it. We're both connecting to the embodied wisdom.
Yep.
Like, your work is about embodied wisdom with a woman's cycle, with our creative energy. My piece is the emotional intelligence, not as intellectual, but as embodied wisdom. It's like we need to reconnect with the body.
Yeah.
We don't need to be out there in woo woo spirit land all the time. Like, we need to be here in our body because we're on this planet to have an embodied experience, which is
Yeah.
also why go and have whatever it feels like, go and have great, pleasurable, sacred sex, whatever that means to you, because as a human being, you are here to have an embodied experience in your human body. That's what I want to leave people with.
Over and out.
Thank you so much, Marcy.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.